You know what sound that is, folks. You betcha. It's another Noon Whistle. I'm Chris Trottier.
And I'm John Ancelone, and we're here with Deb, Dave, and Michael from Craftsmen of Character. So welcome, you guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, this will be exciting. I'm curious to learn about the program and how it started and where it's gone, and how this all interacts. So I'm going to kick it probably back to you, Chris, and maybe you can start us off.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Craftsmen of Character and Edgerton Gear and Dave on here. We started a program how many years ago, Dave? 25?
11 years ago. 11.
11 years ago. And now it's being invested by the U.S. Navy submarine fleet, and it's really going statewide. And we're kicking off when we made the decision to invite Dave and his team and Craftsmen with Character on here. What better way to kick off Manufacturing Month, which is October, other than a local manufacturer who reached out to school district and said, you know what, I'm tired of posting positions. I'm going to partner with the schools and I'm going to feed that pipeline. And we have employers all over Walworth County doing that, but we wanted to meet them. So Dave, talk about, like, I teed it up for you.
Yeah.
11 years ago, you're sitting around. Tell your story on why you were like all of a sudden had this epiphany or were forced to come up with an idea.
Well, I think you just nailed it. We were putting ads out. We were poaching employees from other machine shops. Everybody's offering, 50 cents more an hour because we're so short on quality machinists. So I kind of got fed up and frustrated that there's just not a big talent pool out there. And I was up at our local high school one day helping them resurrect the tech ed department because maybe it was the same way in Elkhorn. A lot of schools, really reduced or shuttered their tech ed departments. And when I was up there, I saw these kids that were me, but 40 years ago, because I was one of those tech ed kids, shop kids, didn't do well in a lot of classes. So then it kind of hit me like, why don't we get these kids in our shops instead of, pounding the streets and the classifieds looking for somebody? So I ended up going back to school, studying, what it takes to reach blue collar kids, because a lot of kids don't fit, we're labeled not college material. I was one of those kids. And there's a lot of them. I mean, the statistics show basically almost 60% of our population does not either attend or graduate from university. So what about all of us? So I ended up going back to school, kind of studying educational theory, and realized we got to give these kids access to shops like ours. And so we flipped the educational model, I realized, because these kids don't do well sitting in their seats. They want to be doing stuff. So 4 days a week job shadowing, 1 day a week sitting in a classroom and kind of going over what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a person of character. And as a former principal, you'll get a kick out of this. So I contacted our principal and our superintendent and said, hey, I got this idea. I want to try running this class, and what do you think? And I don't know if you knew Mark Coombs and Dennis Pauly, but they looked at me and said, yes. Well, I thought,
perfect.
Yeah. Well, I thought they said yes because it was a brilliant idea. It turned out they were going to say yes to anything because they wanted to be the school that said yes.
Yes.
So they kind of rolled the dice. We ran a course that summer, and out of those initial 10 kids, I think 5 of them are still here. And for the next 9 years, I kept running it, and it radically transformed our company because it took our average age from the mid 40s, upper 40s down to the upper 20s and low 30s.
Well, it sounds like you were at the right place at the right time.
It has been awesome because a lot of these kids were D students, kids that were flunking out of school and in our alternative programs that people's completely overlooked. I've got kids who are D students that after they took our course, they were on the dean's list.
So how do these people sitting next to you get involved in this?
Great question. So they're relatively new to it, but Michael, you go first.
So I was a high school principal for 25-ish years, but I taught agriculture prior to that. So I was involved in that area. I grew up on a farm in northern Wisconsin. And in all honesty, I was invited to a class down in Edgerton, May of spending a year and a half ago now. I was invited to a class. They didn't tell me what I was coming to, and they didn't tell me why. But I saw the connection being made with the students. And I see the opportunity for exposure to give students a choice pathway. And a lot of times they say those who don't go to college can't go to college. But I think the flip in this is you should choose your post-secondary option by something you're passionate about. And what schools have not been really strong at, or what's really difficult, is to get students out and see what's possible and what's available. And that's really what Craftsmen with Character does in the mentoring program that we do, where we rotate through businesses. We give students an idea of what could truly be possible, what options they have going post-secondary, rather than you have to do this, and if you can't do this, then you have to do this or this, right?
Yeah.
It really is choice options for post-secondary, and have students realize the benefits of that choice early on.
So I'm gonna flip it over here to Deb. I mean, another educator, right? You've been involved with the program for how many years now, Deb?
So when I was at Floyd Memorial,
Yep.
We ran it. So they're in their third year running it at this point in time. So, and I was, like Michael, invited to Edgerton Gear in the spring of 2021. And we were there with other educators, but also some other businesses from the Beloit community. And as we sat there and listened, and I'm thinking, this is spectacular. This is exactly what we want to do. And it just so happened that one of the representatives from our local businesses, Rob Hendrickson from Frito-Lay, tapped me on the shoulder and said, we want to do this program. We want to do it at Beloit Memorial. And so Rob and I started working together. Our CT director from Beloit at the time was there, and he was all in. So much like Edgerton, we just had everybody saying yes and taking a chance and taking a risk on trying something new and different. I grew up, I always intended to go to college. I taught math for the first 30 years of my career, and then for the last 3, I was the academy coach at Beloit Memorial. But what I always knew was when I went to Beloit Memorial, I had a chance to take tech ed classes and business classes, and those are the classes where the math came alive for me and had purpose. So that is where I learned how to apply all the stuff I was learning in my academic courses, and it made it make sense to me. And I felt like a lot of our students were missing out on that. And that's why I believe so much in the career academies that I made the switch. But in Craftsmen with Character, it was just this cool opportunity for our kids to be somewhere else besides school and learn in a different way.
Yeah. So Dave, I want to come back. There's 2 things I want to bring up. The first one is, let's talk about, I always find it interesting that the theme here is yes, but it also is everybody goes, duh, right? I mean, you're talking about educators, employers. This is the center of that Venn diagram where everybody agrees what we should be doing for kids, and it's experiential learning in the workforce. Dave, I got 2 questions, and I'm going to toss the second one to Deb, Michael, or Dave, whoever wants to answer. But the first one, Dave, when you started identifying kids, and anybody can answer, but I just want to start with Dave when he first piloted the program and started this. What sort of skills and aptitudes were you looking for with kids? You talked about just kids who were in the tech ed. Were there any particulars you were looking for, or were you like just, hey, were you like the Statue of Liberty? Give me your huddled mass or your tired floor.
It was kind of like that, because working with our tech ed teacher, Joe Mink at the time, he identified the kids that were often kind of lost and didn't fit in, but they're really good in shop classes. So they showed some mechanical aptitude. They're tacit learners. They're frustrated sitting in their, having their butts in the seats, but they wanted to learn. They wanted to do stuff. And so if you give me a student who just wants to do stuff, work with their hands, number 1 priority. After that, if they have any want to desire, it's pretty easy. A lot of these kids just don't know where they fit. So once you take them out of the school environment and put them in a shop environment, they just come alive.
So you're talking a lot about the craftsman part of it. I'm curious.
That was my second question. Go, John. Yeah, that was my second question. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I'm more than happy to butt in. Thank you. That craftsman and character connection, and how did you come up with that, or why did that strike you, or why do you think the character part is important?
Well, I think it's not really taught in the schools much, from what I understand it. And we just don't need workers and people. We need good people. And I think in our broken society right now, there's not enough emphasis on what does it mean to be a good person. And too often, if we do talk about it, we don't relate it to practical life. David Gill wrote a book called Becoming Good, and he's a philosopher, teacher, professor out at Berkeley. And he said character is really the skills, they're practical skills we need to be successful in life. They're not just words. So for me, I need to see, for myself, I need to see the application of character and how it plays out and helps me be successful. These kids do too.
So talk to me a little bit about the curriculum, because just to kind of, John, I'll kind of just capture this for the viewers here and the listeners. So the kids shadow an employer for 4 days a week.
Mhm.
And then 1 day a week, they're learning the curriculum Craftsmen with Character. Give us some highlights, Deb, Michael, on what is the content that is in that curriculum.
I think one of the things, and I'm going to roll back just a little bit,
Please
Chris,
do.
on something you said before. And one thing that struck me is after we went through that COVID experience where students were more disconnected from school, we've seen a lot more social emotional challenge in the school experience. So students who are having more difficulty engaging, and Dave talked about that from his experience, but I think that's paramount, and students not knowing necessarily where they fit or where they want to go. So when you think about the curriculum and you think about the character components of the curriculum, Dave wrote the Craftsman Code, and it starts out with, I'm not the center of the universe. And if you can talk to a 15 or 16-year-old, some of them might think they're the center of the universe.
Mm.
And so starting to understand that there's a bigger world out there, starting to understand that there's, I do not know everything nor nearly as much as I think I do is second. The world needs me is another component. Like when you think about those, the curriculum walks through those different spaces, and it's really built to engage students in a reflective look back, but also that progressing forward space and think about what's really possible if they make the right choices, they engage the right way with people. We have some activities where they practice what a scenario might look like in a shop. We have different scenarios that they walk through where they look at a situation that's been given to them, and then they try and identify what the outcomes are or what the outcomes should be. They do a presentation of self where they actually look inside and really talk about their own experiences, what it means to be happy, what it means to be successful beyond just the dollar amount driving everything that they do, that there's a broader sense of happiness in everything that they do. So when you think about the curriculum, it spins around those concepts.
Yeah. Deb, what are some like success stories? I mean, not, you could get into individuals, but like, having been associated and connected with it for the last couple of years with Beloit, what are some like really highlights that they could just be takeaways too about watching this implemented in a school and the impact on kids, schools, and the local relationship with schools?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is it's an impact that sticks with them. So after our first cohort went through, I would come into contact with students the next year. If they were sophomores or juniors who took it, I could go see them, and they were still talking about the lessons that they learned and how they were using it in their world. And I think about a young man right now that I had to hunt down last year to make sure that he passed his English class. We had to have a conversation, he and I, and the English teacher, about why that was really important, and looking at his goals and what he wanted to do. So he is, I saw him at school the other day. I visited and was chatting with him, and he's not only passing his English class, but he's doing exceptionally well in his English class this year. And he's making steps towards his goal of working at Frito-Lay, as a matter of fact. So it's one of those things where what they're learning is applied immediately, and they're learning it. The other piece that I really like about this is they're learning it not from me or from another teacher in the building or from any other educator. They are learning it alongside people who've been in industry and been in the business for a while. So for me, I think that the lessons mean more to the students because they're real life lessons, and they're hearing from people who've lived what they want to live, and they've experienced not only the highs, but the lows, and how did we get past it, and what did we do? So it's very authentic to the students. For years, I taught character curriculum. Anyone who's been in a school knows that you have all these different character curriculums that can be bought. But we also know that it doesn't mean anything to the students unless we can personalize it, unless we can make it make sense to them. And I haven't seen a program do it better than Craftsmen Care.
How do students find out about this?
So at Beloit, we started with, in our first cohort, we recruited students that we knew would benefit.
Okay.
And then in our second year, students were coming to me saying, Ms. Prowse, I want to do this. And in our third year, we were able to just take students out of our academy that is tied to manufacturing and engineering and sciences. So it was one of those where the kids now are coming to us. We built the program with students who we knew would benefit. And then as it grew, the students came to us.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quick. Deb, two things real quick. It's not taught by teachers. We ban teachers from teaching it. And so anybody be offended. But we want people, because kids hear the Charlie Brown voice, wow, from teachers and parents. So we want people in the industry and our businesses that are actually sharing their life experiences. So the teachers we refer to as facilitators, and they're not teaching, they're facilitating the discussion, because we want the kids to share. We want them to open up and get them talking about their lives, which is really, really key. I was going to make another point, but I forgot.
Well, I think with having people from industry there, as opposed to teachers, students are more willing to share things and to really dig deep into what they are. The other really cool thing that happens is the students realize there's other adults in their community outside of their parents and their teachers who kind of have to care about them, that actually care about them because they want the student to succeed and they want the students to learn and understand what they know. So it really is a brilliant.
Well, that was the other point. I remember so often kids are coming back and share with their friends. This is the best class they've ever had, ever.
That's awesome.
So now in Edgerton, we have a waiting list, and we're going to have to run 2 cohorts at a time this next semester because we have so many kids that want to take it.
I think one of the things, if you think about it, one of the things we encourage is for people, whether they're in a mentor or facilitator, is to share their own experiences and share the challenges as well as the successes. So that students see that success line isn't a straight line.
Exactly.
Like there's bumps, there's challenges that come along the way, and you learn and grow through those. So that's that piece that you can't get in a regular classroom that you can get through this type of experience.
So flipping that, there's obvious probably benefits to the people they're working with, right? Like if I'm the mentor, if I'm the person in industry, what benefits do you find in return that were unexpected on that end of it?
Well, from an employer standpoint, we all have people that are, nearing the age of retirement. We've been told repeatedly from different businesses where these mentors are saying, if I get to do this, work with kids and share my experiences and have a legacy, I won't take your retirement.
That's special.
And then the other part of it, I think we all have a need, to connect and do something purposeful. So you take people on the shop floors and job sites and you give them that sense that you are molding the next generation. You can be a hero to these kids rather than social media and be a real person, because we've all got people in our lives that have made a big impact on us at an early age. We're giving our folks in our shop floors those opportunities, and it just changes their lives too.
Well, I'm also hearing you say that of all there's a lot of benefits, right? You create a learning organization. Your current employees are coaching and training and teaching. There's purpose. There's a heartfelt why, and you're not looking all the time for the next.
We are full. Edgerton Gear is fully staffed, and I actually have kind of a waiting list of young people that want to work here. Almost zero turnover. And the turnover we do have we've grown guys up and say, I want to try another career. I'm like, God bless you. Let's go. We'll support you in that. I don't know too many employers that can say that they're fully staffed.
Well, I just I'm going to reiterate that, because as I send this YouTube link out to my employers who are considering joining our first pilot, you have a waiting list of employees and you don't have a high turnover rate.
Correct.
Okay. That's
And
amazing.
this can work in any profession, industry. Would you agree?
Yeah, the businesses in Edgerton here, they've all benefited. I mean, they all can join and say, yeah, we've gotten students who are now sticking with us for not just a year or 2 or 6 months, but for years.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. Oh, sorry.
Well, I think we overlook how important connection is, in those relationships. And once these kids connect, like in our shop or in other businesses, there's that sense of community that they, for the first time, maybe they have healthy relationships with adults.
Yeah. So you've had about a 20-minute interview with Chris and I, and we're both looking for employment. And I'm a semi-skilled worker, but really high character guy. Chris is really skilled worker. Character's questionable.
That's true.
Who are you picking?
I feel like this is where the hair conversation comes in.
I mean, that's-
I'll say this, and every one of us will answer this, and maybe the same way. But when I was a principal in schools, I would hire somebody less trained who had the dispositional qualities that were going to be successful, because you can train the other things, right? So I think while you can grow people dispositionally, that gives an employer something solid to hold on to and work through. So you can train somebody on a machine, or you can train somebody in a curriculum, and so to speak. It's harder to grow the other areas, especially the older we get.
That's great.
I no longer do the hiring in our company. I let my staff do it. And the number one quality they look for is humility, hands down. They don't care if you know a ton of skills, but if they sniff arrogance in you at all, you're done. And so the kids that have come through our course, that's a huge part of what we teach them, is you got to be teachable and humble and respectful. So yeah, I learned that years ago. I took over the company 30 some years ago, and I hired people for skills, and it went awful. I mean, if their character wasn't top notch, it created an incredible toxic environment, and it totally stressed me out. So I would put people with character every day over people that were highly skilled if I had to choose.
All right, real quick, we're getting about that time, so I got one more question, and then I'll let you pick how you want to close.
Oh.
How did the U.S. Navy get involved here, the submarine fleet? How did that come about?
Okay, real quick version is we ran the course in Beloit. I was leaving their graduation. I got a text from John Kane, who is the CEO of Scott Forge, and he said, "Hey, you got to get over here. I'm at Blackhawk. The Navy's here." I'm like, "So?" Because you got to get over here. I'm telling about Craftsman characters. So everybody was talking about Craftsman because of the success that we had in Beloit. And the woman from the Navy said, "Well, I have one question." She goes, "What do you need to take this national?" And I just stuttered and sputtered and like, "What are you talking about? I'm a small shop guy." And she explained that the U.S. submarine base, we're not getting our submarines fast enough. Our submarines are our only competitive advantage that we have in all the military. So the Navy has put out this big initiative to figure out what the problem was with their 16 or 17,000 suppliers. And they all came back and said the same thing. It's workforce development, getting young people into the manufacturing facilities. So the Navy has a huge initiative of trying to find programs like us or other things to really raise the awareness that there's some great jobs available, in the submarine industrial base.
That's great. All right. That's an awesome story. Thank you guys for being on here. John, let's get a quick closing. What do you think? How do you want to close?
Well, let's close with the character theme and what character means to each one of us. But before that, I have a Navy question for you guys, since you have that connection. Is if someone told me I was about as helpful as a screen door in a submarine, is that positive or negative?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Anyway,
How long were you holding on to that one to share?
Yeah. Anyway, character. I agree with everything. Great talking to you guys. I mean, I think that's so important. You talked about relationships. So, character to me is being great. Someone who's grateful and has good integrity, meaning they're doing the right thing, no matter who's watching or if it's in the limelight or not. That's kind of
let's hear you. Let's go right around. Deb, character. What does it mean?
Character means being able to make decisions that are right, regardless of what everyone else or everything else is telling you. You do it because it's right and it's for a greater good.
Yeah.
Dave, what do you think?
What she said.
All right.
But it's true, always doing the right thing, no matter the circumstances. And I have a staff now that even if we're going to lose money on a job, there's any issues, we are more concerned about doing the right thing. That applies to each other, to our customers, and to our vendors. Doing the right thing in all situations, even if it's painful.
Michael, I think
that what they said, and I'm the and person in our group. I'll always say and. But I think it's also the humility to understand that you need other people and engaged people in the world, and that nobody walks the walk of success, whatever success looks like, by themselves. You're always doing it with other people providing support, resources, engagement with you, and that's part of the message we try to get to the kids as well.
That's a great and.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, nice job.
man, oh man, he deserves a lunch. All right.
I've been sitting on this one for a while.
Yeah, listen. So is John on the door on the screen door joke. So, hey, we want to thank you, Dave. Thanks for your investment. I've said to some of our partners, there's two kinds of employers: those that are partnering with school districts and not looking, and those that aren't and are looking. And it's clear that you had the foresight to do this, and I'm so glad that your program is now being recognized nationally and being invested by the Department of Defense and U.S. Navy. And Deb and Michael, thank for your service and education. And I think we've gone over, but it was the best going over possible. And it was everything that our Elkhorn School District embraces. And I know New Berlin and Beloit and definitely Edgerton Gear. So thank you so much. And on that note, we got to get back to work, don't you think?
Yeah, congrats to you guys. Great work. Great work.